All right, let's open up in prayer. Father, I just want to give you the glory, and I want to thank you for this opportunity to discuss your word with like-minded people. I thank you for all the wisdom that you're going to give us and everything that you reveal to us, how we can connect it to the real world out there, to give us the security that you're in control. And Father, I also want to lift up everyone that's currently in a situation as a result of the things happening. Father, that you will guide them, you'll lead them, and that you will provide for every single need, just like you provide for Israel through the wilderness. And I thank you that you're in control and you will look after your people. And we want to acknowledge you for that and thank you for that. In the mighty name of Yeshua Mashiach. Amen. All right, Va'etchanan I pleaded. So this is walking on the border between the desert and the promised land. So that's the meaning of that picture. And it's also found upon the Torah. That's the long scroll, it's just a book, but intent is it's the word of Yahweh. And that's the whole theme of the book of Devarim, is the repeating of the Torah in the context of crossing the Jordan, which is a time frame, and it's also a people. In Moses' time, it was the new generation. In our prophetic timeline, it's the last generation. And there's a message for the last generation, just like there was a message for the new generation spoken by the prophet Moses, repeated by the prophet like Moses, Yeshua, and should be repeated by the prophets of today within the body of Messiah. But what do the prophets preach today? So we're going to look at the message that Yahweh's got for our spiritual leaders. And that's the main focus of this study. What I highlighted there in the Hebrew, if anyone want to take a stab at it, with Va'etchanan, with those letters.
Philip, the last two letters have crowns on the top of them. I'm not talking about the Hebrew letters, just for what they stand for. One is, do you remember we talked about
the Lamed,
the ladder, the king, and I don't know what that last.
Oh, they both the letter Nun. The one is called the Nun Sufit, but the Nun Sufit, the one on the end, is actually an enlarged Vav as well. That means it's the crowned Vav, or the restored Adam, or the Mashiach.
Father and the Son.
Yeah. And what's also inside there with the orange letters?
Is that Aleph and Tav?
That's Aleph Tav. That's also Mashiach. And then we have the letter Chet there. Chet means life. Then we have the Vav on the right, which can mean the Messiah in the flesh. It can also mean the result of the restoration process as you enter through the process, entering through the Chet, facing the Mashiach, and then the processes of doing that, you will be coming on the other side on the right, which is entering the kingdom. And that's what that little Vav means. It's you who pass through all the little processes that we're going to look at. So just in the name of this Torah portion, there's a story. And that storyline fits whatever we're going to do today perfectly. There's also the last two letters. Chet Nun is the word Gen. I don't know if you know what the word Gen means.
Grace.
It's Afrikaans genade. It's grace. That's where the Gen stands for. So within the phrase I pleaded, there's grace. The Messiah is there. And there's double fruitfulness. That's the two letters Nun.
In a house, the last third letter to the end is a house, isn't it?
That's a chet, that's a doorway, that's a blood on the doorpost letter.
That's where it's all at.
Yeah, it's entry through the door. And it's the time of leaving Egypt. That's the Pesach, the night before, the day after. So, yeah, the great Exodus is going to start with a chet. Anyway. So this is the topics we're going to look at from Deuteronomy 3 through to chapter 7. And I just want to emphasize the center of this topics within this parashah. And we see right in the middle is the 10 commandments. And the 10 commandments, just like on the menorah branch with the festivals, Shavuot is right in the middle, which is about the 10 Commandments. And the focus I want to place on this is that the repeating of the Torah is repeated from the foundation of the 10 Commandments, from the foundation of what Shavuot is about. And then it branches off into all the other things. The main focus and the foundation of our faith is the 10 Commandments, or the 10 words. So we're going to look at that from a few different angles as well.
Can I just clarify, because in English, commandments has a particular tone and meaning to it. Words seem to be neutral. In the Hebrew, is words neutral, or does it imply some sort of command?
Words in the first context is always about creation, speaking life. Then words in the other context is about restoration. That's commandments. And both have a part to play. So Devarim, repeating the words, has both in them. It's a recreation of humanity, or the creation, finalizing the creation process through speaking. And it's also about the commandments. It's about restoring and restoration, where you need to put the framework back in order to gather the people, assembling the people. So that the imagery I'm going to use in this parasha is the Tower of Babel, and the people were gathered by a single language. Now Yahweh is gathering his people through a single language, but it's not the language in itself. It's what is conveyed by that language that are gathering the people around his strong tower, which is not the Tower of Babel. So there's a counterfeit of the real, and that's the Tower of Babel. And to give you a hint, it has to do with what we know as Pentecost, which links back to the 10 Commandments. And the languages that are spoken is a language with a message. It's not necessarily the different languages. It is what was said when that was spoken on that day. That was the miracle that attracted numerous people from the nations to pay attention. It wasn't the fact, oh, you're speaking in Greek. Oh, he's telling me about this special, I can buy this and that on eBay. No, it's a specific message that was said in that language that drew people's attention to it. And that's the emphasis of assembling, gathering back. It's about restoration of the language and the message that's conveyed by that language. But currently it's multiple languages. That's why the miracle of speaking in tongues is speaking in languages. But if you read Acts, it's about they prophesied. What did they prophesy? A prophet repeats the word of Yahweh. What was repeated on the day of Shavuot? Probably the 10 words or the 10 commandments in all those languages. And of course, on top of that, repent and turn back. I think that was the message to the nations in that event. So I already covered 2 slides.
Good.
Quickly recap, nervous system is the leadership of the body. And if the nervous system, if you're lame, you sit in a wheelchair, you can't move your legs, your arms and all that, our leadership is currently causing the body of Messiah to be lame. They're sitting in a wheelchair, can't help themselves. And that is the problem we face today. But Yahweh can do miracles. He can say, get up and walk at the pool of Bethesda. Where the water is stirred, how do you stir the water? The doctrine of the Torah done away with is a false doctrine. You stir the water. The Torah still stands. You stir the water. And then the lame will stand up and walk. So there's an opportunity for leaders to repent. And this is the main message today, is the message to leadership, to get up and walk when the water is stirred. That is in contrast with your doctrines that you're currently preaching. That you need to get from your wheelchair, get up, and start becoming part of the army of Yahweh and getting the language back that you need to speak. That's in line with this time within this generation. So that's that one.
A counterfeit of this, just listening this morning, the latest thing now is once you've received and you've become transhuman, they'll be able to, if you speak German or Greek, it will be what's downloaded in your mind. You'll be able to speak Greek or German through AI straight away. You'll understand what they're saying and you'll be able to speak it. That's the counterfeit of the enemy. Through this AI. Once you've been And this is appropriated in your mind, which is going to attack your mind. This is the plan now, that they'll be able to download you anything. This is a utopia, or what they're speaking about.
Really?
One language, my brother. One understanding.
Not Hebrew.
Ever since Babylon.
So it's a message, more about a message in different languages.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
It's that bit where Neo was in the chair downloading, I know Kung Fu.
Yeah, I know. Alrighty. Just quickly want to emphasize here, we looked at the 4 heads that flowed back into Eden, and also the 4 heads that started the river of Jordan, which is the river of judgment. And last time we looked at every one of them, and the one I want to just emphasize again is the second river, which is Gihon, that has to do with Pinchas stood up, went up and did battle against the sons of Benjamin, the sons of Belial, the lawless ones. So in the context of today's Parashah, a leader cried out and pleaded, and Yahweh said no. Last week we saw, Lord, that's actually we did this, we prophesied, we did miracles, blah, blah, blah. Yahweh said no. So the symbolism of Moses not being accepted to enter is the symbolism of leadership, who are still sons of Belial. They will plead, but they will not enter. They will go through the next process that Yahweh is going to allow over them in order to repent and get to their senses. So this is in line with this parashah just as a foundational beginning. Now this is the slide I had last time. I just put the 2 arrows there, which I didn't have last time. So the blue one is the first resurrection, the yellow one is the second resurrection. The first one is of the righteous, which happens at the time of the Jordan River, and the other one is at the end of the Jordan River, which will start the 7th millennium, which is also referred to as the wine press, where there's another process happening for 1,000 years before the New Jerusalem will come down. And a lot of people don't really read this. And I've listened to numerous preachers preaching on the book of Revelation, and they don't see it because they've got their rosy glasses on. They only see their doctrines and read the book of Revelation through the doctrines. But if you look at the patterns and everything Yahweh lays in the Torah, it's easy to interpret the end from the beginning, because the interpretation is not in your mind. The interpretation is embedded within the patterns and the cycles and the things that we learn through the symbolism, through the Torah portions that we go through. And if you don't have that fundamental foundational knowledge, you don't have the dictionary to translate the imagery of Revelation, and then you go off and make your own little doctrine. So that's just another message to our leaders. Go and do the Torah cycle so you can understand the word of Yahweh, specifically in context of the end times. All right, this one is kicking off with this Parashah Va'etchanan. We already discussed a bit of the word there. It means I pleaded. It comes from the word Hanan. That means to be gracious, to be sought, to be favored, to be pitied, to show favor, and to be fair. Now, fairness always has to do with righteousness as well. Now, Va'etchanan is the gematria of 515. That means dark, that is empty, silly, foolish, folly, prayer, oak of weeping, afflicted of Yahweh. And that's the state that Moses was in. He was in a state of prayer, basically weeping before Yahweh, and he was afflicted by Yahweh in getting the response and said, no, you will only see it with your eyes, but you will not enter. And the question at hand, what he was weeping about or in prayer about, was about the possession and inheritance and the property that's going to be given to by Yahweh to his people. And those who are upright, who are part of the Kohathites, or those who are close with him, will walk through the Jordan and will enter the promised land. And that's basically found in the gematria of 515. Hanan is first found in scripture in Genesis 33:5, where Jacob met up with Esau after 20 years, and it's known as Jacob's trouble. And that's where he made the statement and said, these are the children Yahweh graciously given your servant Jacob. And that graciously is the word Hanan. And that is the context of when we found the kiss of Esau. Within the jots and tittles, you'll see when they kissed him, there were the teeth marks in the Torah scroll to say that that was not really a kiss. It was a warning to Jacob that Esau will come back for you. Now, Esau is going to strike back, and he's going to strike during the time of this. Leading up to the Jordan or going through the Jordan, that's where Esau will come back against Yahweh's covenant people. And the topic of contention is the birthright again. And the birthright's associated with the covenant associated with what's happening? It's associated with promises, and the promises has to do with the inheritance and the blessings. And that is what Esau still wants. He wants the physical part of the inheritance. And Yahweh said, no, you need to have the spiritual part of being the firstborn to be a prophet of the house, a priest of the house. And that's where the kingdom of priests come in. Those who are the kingdom of priests, they are set up because they look at Yahweh first before they look at the hand, which is the promises. If you change the order of that, that's when you get into trouble. So Esau is just after the physical blessings. He doesn't care about being a prophet or whatever. He's just going to go and hunt and come back and eat and enjoy the wealth kind of thing. And that's the basis of the prosperity teaching in the body of Messiah today. They're full of doctrines of Esau. Not wanting the spiritual side of the birthright, not wanting the discipline of Yahweh. When you read this Torah portion, you'll see it's all about going back to the commandments, obey the commandments, taking them, bringing them back to the commandments, repeating that over and over again. And what does Esau do in the body of Messiah? No, I don't want that. I want the mansion, I want the house, I want this, I want that, I want money. I don't care about the other part of the birthright. So that's why we are not in a good state. Now, what we see here is the confirmation of the kiss of Esau and what's the other one? Jacob's trouble. Those are two terms that's associated with the end times. And Jacob, of course, is Israel. And Jacob, in a sense, is right after he wrestled with Yahweh. Moses is wrestling with Yahweh. And when you wrestle with Yahweh, he will change your walk. So you will go through a process where Yahweh will change you before you will enter and face that time. So we need to first have the guts to wrestle with Yahweh. And the wrestling is about, show me what is wrong in my life so I can deal with it, so I can change my walk. And then I will be okay to walk through the river, close to the Kohathites, and you can enter the promised land without going through all those dark things that is before us. All right, so connecting all these thoughts back, the Jordan, of course, is the overall overarching theme, and the leaders or the leader like Moses wanted to enter, and Yahweh said no, and that is basically the main message to the leadership. And it's also found in James 3 verse 1 that says those who are teachers will get a stricter judgment. Because why? Because they set an example, and we've discussed earlier today that people in public who were spiritual leaders renounced their faith, and they gave reasons why, and there will be a lot of people following them. And they will be in trouble based on this Torah portion, what Yahweh is going to say to them then.
Again, in addition, this morning we listened to a tape with David Wilkerson, David Wilkerson, saying exactly that thing. A warning to spiritual leaders that, the whole seeker service thing. He said the basis of the seeker service is, he said they have a process where they will go into a community and they'll poll people and interview them to find out what's offensive in the way a church service is run, what's keeping you out of church and whatever else, and then tailor-make a service for sinners to make sinners feel comfortable. And he said, it's not about feeling comfortable.
Yeah, exactly. Change your life.
Change your life.
It's an actual formula that they're following to be able to build
Mega churches.
Yes, it's a formula, and it's that.
Yeah, and it's a system to get money from people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hype them up spiritually, they're gullible, and you take their money. That's all it is. The wolves devour the sheep for their own gain.
And you know,
Yes.
Philip, at the end of, if you read Joshua, at the end of Joshua, where he's getting ready to die, and he calls his leaders to him, he reiterates exactly what Moses said. Keep these commandments. If you don't keep these commandments and statutes, Yahweh will come against you and he will treat you like he treats the others. And it was quite surprising that the words were completely like in letter form what Moshe had said. It was a warning to these people, and yet they stepped out of it.
Yeah. So this is just a quick recap before we go into the next slide, and this has to do with Lebanon. Now, Lebanon has everything to do with whiteness and to be purified, and of course, at the more positive side, to be protected, to get the comforter, the spirit, sign on the forehead, learning, teaching, the branch of Messiah, becoming the bride or the wife of Messiah to be taken away, provision, and then whiteness and entering the possession or territory. So in the context of this parashah, Deuteronomy 3, verse 23 to 28, it says, "Then I pleaded with Yahweh, Adonai Yahweh, you have only begun to show me how great and powerful you are. What kind of God is there in heaven or on the earth who can do the deeds and the mighty acts you have done? Please let me go over and see the beautiful land on the other side of the Jordan, those beautiful mountains in Lebanon." Yahweh was angry with me because of you, so he wouldn't listen to me. Yahweh said, "That's enough out of you. Don't talk to me anymore about this. Go to the top of Mount Pisgah and look west, north, south, and east, that you may look at the land, but you will never cross the Jordan River. Give instructions to Joshua, encourage and strengthen him, because he will lead those people across the Jordan River, and he will help them to take possession of the land you see." So what we see here is the connection that we make to Lebanon. It's all about entering the land, becoming a bride prophetically. And Moses is not going to be part of this. Who else was not part of this prophetically? If you think about it. Lebanon is all about the bride and be gathered. And it's a prophetic foreshadow. Joshua is going to enter. Joshua is a picture of Yeshua. He is the branch who will gather the bride. The bride is prophetically referring to Israel in this context. Now, people like Abraham, David, all the other prophets, they're just like Moses. They could only see the promised land through a prophetic sight from a high place, but they are not the ones who's physically going to enter. It's only the last generation that will enter. So this is not a bad thing for Moses. It's not your time. You're not in the time frame of having the privilege of being there. But those in the last generation, they will have the privilege, but they will have to face the things that's associated with that, to see that greatness of Yahweh, because surely he will show his greatness in a very mighty way.
Jordan means judgment, so they're not getting the judgment.
No, they are part of the first resurrection. And the resurrection is immediately after the Great Tribulation. They're not entering or going through the Jordan River. They are going to be raptured. They're the only ones who are going to be raptured. You have to die before you can be raptured. The rapture is from the holding place of the dead, of the righteous, and you will be risen with those alive, well, the last generation, to be gathered immediately after generation as revealed by Moses. So that's the context. It's not that Moses is not going to be saved. It's just saying, Moses, prophetically, you're not part of the last generation. And so was Abraham and David and all those. It's not your time. You had your purpose to lead up to that climax. But there's the last generation that will actually see that happening. And we might be part of it. I don't know. Maybe our children. I've got a gut feel it's going to be us. But yeah, that's just to put things into context.
You're just going to a great reset.
No, we're ready. Whatever comes, we're going to be ready. We're going to be enjoying this.
Think
Because
about
we're close to the goethals.
Okay.
you think about how strong a message that is to the nation of Israel.
Yeah.
That Moses, the one who has led them through the whole of this journey, has provided God's word to them, represents God
Yes.
to them. God treats him no differently to how he would treat any other man, in that if he does wrong, there are consequences to that action. And, we know that
Yeah.
Moses would have seen the promised land after he died, been, but not, what do you call it?
Not part of that generation.
Not part of that generation.
Yeah.
And that must have affected him.
Yeah.
I mean, 40 years.
Done so much. And I was going to miss that
Yeah.
massive event.
Yeah.
Well, he
What
says a couple times, on account of you people, I'm not going with you. He wasn't happy.
So Moses, stop it. I'm not going to talk to you about it again. Just stop it.
Enough already. You can hear the
Yeah. Enough.
It's as if Moses doesn't get it. It's not possible or practical for him because he's in the wrong time zone.
Yeah.
Well, it's like David not being allowed to build the temple.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Same dilemma. So I misspelled Pisgah. So I'll fix that in the notes after. Anyway, he took Moses up to Pisgah, which is page Samech Gimel Hey. That means cleft. The verbal root means to pass between or within. Now that is the same language that was used when Yahweh placed Moses in the cleft and he walked past him and showed him his glory. So if you just think about Moses pleading, so I think when Yahweh said, go up to this place, Moses immediately knew, I'm going to see Yahweh's glory from this. And maybe he had a vision of the last events that's going to happen. And maybe then he realized, okay, it is for a time to come. And he probably saw the whole thing happening. Just like John the Revelator saw it. I think Moses saw the same.
Yeah, because there's no time connected in the spiritual.
Yeah.
That's most probably why they could see.
Now we're going to look at the passage in Deuteronomy that confirms what you just said in a minute. Everything in the spiritual is above time, and it can play off in any moment in time if Yahweh allows you to see it.
Yes.
And if he put you in the cleft, and
It's interesting that when Moses is relating all this to the children of Israel about to cross, you think he'd be excited for them building up. And then he goes and says, but you're going to disobey, you're going to rebel. And so he obviously is seeing prophetically into the future.
yeah. But
at that point.
I didn't put it in the slides because I'm mindful of not going over in 2 hours. When you look at the directions that Yahweh asked him to look, that's fascinating. He said, look west. So if you're standing there, you look west, that's the Jordan, you look at the promised land. Then you look north, you look in line of the Jordan River. Then you look south. So you sort of have to now, from north to south, you sort of have to go up, be upside down and look backwards in order to look south. And then you look east, which is towards the beginning, which is things that are still supposed to happen. So the first way is looking is spiritually, prophetically, then he turning back upside down into the physical, and then he could look back into the current Israel.
Because it's connected like the tree and the umbilical cord that we spoke about last week. Everything is connected,
Yeah.
I think.
Because if I tell someone,
It makes sense
look
now.
west, look north, look east, then look south. He swapped it from north to south and then east. So it's like turning him upside down.
Yeah.
And that means that you're changing a dimension. So I'm going to show you the spiritual, I'm going to flip you back to the physical, and then you look at the normal people out there.
That's interesting.
And that's why I think he had a revelation of the cleft and the glory of Yahweh passing. And this glory is going to be the appearing of the Mashiach. And then the gathering and entering. That's connected to Lebanon that we just looked at. There's a little few hints in there. It's all about Yahweh's Hanan, his grace, which has to do with entering through the gate, which is the blood gate, facing Mashiach. And you get the little Vav on the other side, which is you. Congratulations, you made it into the promised land. Pisgah. No, Pisgah. Sounds nearly like Pesach, isn't it? Pesach is Pei Samech Chet. So this is the first two letters they share. Anyway, Pisgah has the number gematria of 148. That means 2 camps: to go down, to descend, utterly destroy, annihilate, to beat down, lame, people in the wheelchair, cleft, to prostrate yourself. That's Moses repenting. Juice, it's probably grape juice, so it's to do with the wine press. Accepting, talking, to urge, distinguish oneself, which has to do with the 2 camps, or the sheep and the goats. To excel, receiving a payment or a bribe, or to be redeemed. That's the other connection to that. To pass over, which is another term for Pesach. To spring over, that means it's going to be quick. To join together, that links to our 2 nuns that we saw in Va'etchanan, where the 2 sticks are joined together. Lap, bosom, flour, meal, learning, strength, enduring, perpetually, victory and everlastingness, which is Chayolam. That has to do with the kingdom in the next level, when you have your renewed body and your buff time in a glorious state. So what we can see there is similar language that we saw with Abraham interceding and pleading for Sodom and Gomorrah, because Yahweh came down to see for himself, because evil cried out to heaven. And then he annihilated and destroyed and beat down Sodom and Gomorrah, which is a prophetic picture of the Jordan that is to come. And those, like Lot and his family, they came out because they distinguished themselves and they left, and they could cross over and enter the victory and survive that event. So we see the same links there between Abraham interceding, Moses interceding, but this time Moses interceded for himself. But if you flip that on spiritual leaders, indirectly Moses is interceding for spiritual leaders today. And he pleaded for them. The time frame for this is to went down and pleaded is, of course, the 2 nuns that give us that hint. And the 2 nuns means double fruitfulness, which is another meaning for Ephraim. If you translate Ephraim, it means double fruitfulness. And nun is a symbol of fish, or the male sperm, which is fruitful. And the 2 nuns is also connected. I've got the 2 fish there, which is the Pisces, the age of the Gentiles, 2,000-year period between the first and second coming of Mashiach. So that's the time frame, and we're reaching the end of that time frame, which is Jordan, where you need to enter through the gate, the chet, the blood on the doorpost, and through the blood of Mashiach, you will also have a greater exodus, just like the original exodus. And then you will leave, and the little vav will enter the promised land. And that's the symbolism of all the letters within the word Va'etchanan we already looked at. All right, so we already said all of that. Beautiful, rich meaning of all those put together in the context of this scene where Moses pleaded. Okay. I pleaded, or Hanan, means to be gracious, show favor. Hanan comes from the root word nacha, that means to pitch a tent, to encamp, to dwell, abide, and to rest. And that's what Yeshua said, enter into my rest. That's that final Sukkot. That's that final event, entering into the promised land, which is linked to Yahweh's grace, which is linked to Moses' pleading, which is linked to the last generation entering the promised land. Now, this word is first found, or Hanan is first found in Genesis 26:17, where King Abimelech asked Isaac to leave because he became mightier than the king. Then Isaac left and pitched, which is Nachah, his tent, in the valley of Gerar. That is the place where he opened the wells of his father Abraham. Now, Gerar comes from the verbal root Gerar, that means to chew the cud. Now, right there, we've got a beautiful picture. Now, the chewing the cud is only found with clean animals. Those who follow Yahweh are regarded as clean. Those who don't follow Yahweh, they're unclean and they don't chew the cud. Chewing the cud is to chew whatever is given to you as food. You bring it back up, you chew it again. That's the purpose of studying the scripture. Torah cycle, you get some bits and pieces to chew. In the week, you go and bring it back up and chew it again and meditate upon it. So that's the idea of chewing the cud. The link to the wells of Abraham that's been opened. What is the connection with Abraham? What is Abraham all about? Moses is always the commandments. What is Abraham's claim to fame?
The father of faith.
Circumcision.
The covenant and the sign of the covenant. So the wells of Abraham is all about taking you back to the covenant. Linking it to Moses, the covenant is established on Mount Sinai with the 10 words, which is the signing of the contract, agreeing, we will do everything that you say. They've signed the paperwork, now they're in covenant. And that covenant was established with Abraham. So now he's opening up the wells again. And Isaac, who's he a symbol of? Yeshua. Because he was the one where the servant went and gather a bride, or go and get a bride for him. So Isaac became mightier than the kingdoms of this world. And they've asked him to leave and they killed him. And then he went back and he's reopening the wells of Abraham. He's extending the ability to drink from the waters of the covenant to all nations. They can all now come and drink. That's what he told the woman at the well. You can now drink, and I will give you water. You'll never become thirsty, because they are from the wells of Abraham, the wells of my covenant that I'm now reopening. And at that place, now I'm the shepherd, and I will lead you to green pastures. That's Psalm 23. So you can chew the cud. And whatever I feed you, you bring it back in. And then you can truly digest it, to go into your soul, your spirit, your mind, every fiber of your being, to entrench yourself and renew yourself with his word that he's going to teach you through the help of his spirit. So that's the whole picture of Hanan. That's linked to Va'etchanan and how it connects to all those things. Beautiful picture. John 10 verse 27 confirms this. He said, my sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. And I will give them eternal life, and they shall never perish, neither shall any man pluck them out of my hand. And he's saying this to the people who drinks from the wells of Abraham. When you connect to the covenant, the only way to connect to the covenant is the Shavuot event, which is agreeing to the 10 words, which is the 10 commandments. If you abolish them, you basically divorce Yahweh, because that's the paperwork for the marriage. You don't abolish that. You need that. Otherwise, you won't get the first resurrection, mate. You'll go through the wine press as the foreign woman that's pregnant is longing back to her lover in Egypt. So good luck to you. So those who are led by the Spirit of the shepherd, the verse I've got here connects the Spirit to Yeshua. That says 1 John 4 verse 13. By this we know that we abide in him and he in us, because he has given us his Spirit. And the him he's talking about is Yeshua. They received the Spirit of Yeshua. The Holy Spirit is actually the means to multiply Yeshua to everyone. The disciples had the privilege to sit at his feet to learn from him. Now he said, I'm going away, but I'm going to give you a helper that will simulate me within your midst. And it's as if I'm there with you, teaching you just like I taught my disciples. The Holy Spirit's not there to give you feeling, give you gold fillings or gold dust. It's there to teach you the Torah.
Yes.
That's the number one purpose, because it's the Spirit of Yeshua. There's also other passages that talk about the Spirit is the Spirit of the Father, because they share the same Spirit and they are one. So we need to try and wreck our little brains into, understanding the spiritual essence of Yahweh. He's not three, he's one, but he's got three functions. And he's got a physical function, which is Mashiach. He's got a spiritual function, which we call the Holy Spirit, Ruach HaKodesh, which you can only identify when you connect it to the one with the name Yeshua and to the one with the name Yahweh. If it's just the Holy Spirit, any religious spirit can grab that and make something of it. And then they do stupid things and people follow that religious spirit, calling it the Holy Spirit. It's a title, it's not a name. You need to connect it to the name of the one whose spirit it is. Yeah, they had a movie, The Holy Spirit. Yeah, Nevi Kravitz got it, everyone's got it. It's a feeling, it's always a feeling. It's always a physical manifestation. We're going to look at miracles versus blessings in a moment, and what the false Holy Spirit's doing and what the real Holy Spirit's doing.
So the sheep hear my voice because they're chewing it up all the time.
Yes.
And the voice is the Torah. We're going to see.
They're chewing up the word, regurgitate, so of course they're hearing it, they've got it in their mouth. The word is near you, even in their mouth.
So the voice is not the tonal quality that you identify. Oh yeah, I recognize that voice. That's the voice of Yeshua. No, it's the message that's been spoken by the voice that identifies who the one with the voice is. It's not the sound of the voice, it's the message of the voice. All right, this one is about balanced truth. So last week we looked at Mount Hermon, which is the Mount of Transfiguration, which I think, according to what we saw last week, and the Transfiguration happened with two individuals, Moses and Elijah, which I think are the two witnesses that's going to be in Revelation as well in the last days. The one represents the Torah, which is Moses, the other one, Elijah, which is the prophets. So if you see two people, it's actually a joke, standing next to Messiah, who do you know who's who? Who's Moses, who's Elijah?
I don't know.
You can see that from their appearance. The one is buff and strong because he carried two tablets. The other one is skinny because he ran from Jezebel.
That's good, I like that.
Moses is a big buff one. Elijah is the one that's a long distance athlete. All right. So what I want to emphasize here, I've put a little menorah there, because the symbolism on the picture is you've got Yeshua in the middle and you've got Moses and Elijah. Now, collectively, they represent something. Now, as we know, Yeshua's other nickname is the branch. And the branch we know is the middle branch, not the center or the other smaller branches. So the fullness of Mashiach is expressed through the middle as well as these other two branches that's depicted here. That's the fullness of the work of Mashiach. The reason I'm saying that is because we are little Mashiachs, and we need to have the fullness of that balanced truth to speak as spiritual leaders to people, as being part of the kingdom of priests. Your message need to have the middle branch as well as the one on the left and the one on the right. You need to have the ultimate truth, which is Mashiach. Everything's about him. Everything in the whole scripture is about him. Then it stems off, it's always about the Torah. And it's also about prophecy. So the balanced truth is always packaged up in amongst those three things to get the fullness of the message of Mashiach. Now, people who call themselves teachers and prophets and evangelists, whatever their titles are, what truth do they have? Do they have this balanced truth, the recipe for not going to the right or the left, or not leaning towards this side, more towards that side. And if you think about what messages they preach as prophets, especially when they label themselves as prophets, it's also always about fortune telling. It's always about you're going to meet someone, you're going to have a new job, you're going to be this, you're going to have that, and blah, blah, blah. It's never about, the prophet will always say, repent, go back to Yahweh, to Torah. If you don't, then it will tell you your future, which is you're going to go under captivity under a nation. They will put you into the furnace. You'll be cursed in the city, cursed in the field, and all those things. That's the message of the prophet. It always brings you back to the other branch, which is the Torah. And if you connect the two, that's the middle branch. That's Mashiach. And he's the light, the truth, everything within perfect balance. So that's another message to our spiritual leaders. In the body of Mashiach, you need a balanced truth. Otherwise, you are not a true prophet. If you don't build upon the Torah and you don't teach people to go back to the Torah. Because this is the last words that Moses pleaded. It has to do with the 10 Commandments, which is the middle of this Torah portion. It's always about the Shavuot experience, the covenant experience, the 10 words, which is the voice, walking in the garden as well. It's always about what the message is.
And the 10 words are only the headings of all the commandments.
That's
in
it.
Torah.
It's the index. Everything hang off there.
Again, we get back to the message to the seven churches. Balaam and Balak.
Yeah.
A message of Balak.
Sons of Belial as well,
Yeah.
Benjamin.
A lie.
And then Pinchas will come and he will spear the Nachash and release them from the plague that is coming. So that's a beautiful picture that's connected to Moses. And the question, the reason I'll put this in, a lot of people will say, oh, if Moses didn't make the promised land, was he saved? Yes, he was, because he was on the Mount of Transfiguration. But in answering the question, there's a little story behind it, which is about balanced truth. The Torah is still important. He stood on the mountain with Yeshua on his one side and the prophets on the right.
You know, even the thing is, it's one of the things that Martin Hals brought in. He said, if you read the whole Word of God, you gain an understanding of God's character. And knowing God's character, there's no way that Moses would have been, you know, because you get a sense of God's compassion and love and forgiveness and all those things, so that you know that regardless of what Moses did, he would have been saved. There's no way he would not
He
be
pleaded,
saved.
he repented. That's brokenness, that's repentance. That's good enough.
And he saw the day of Yeshua's coming. He
Yeah.
believed
You wouldn't
in
even
his-
question it,
he
really,
believed
in
in
reality,
his
if you had
coming one.
if you had that.
Yeah. He was just limited in his understanding within that time that he lived. The other thing is that I want to emphasize here, the Jews, as well as a lot of Messianics, don't teach the prophets. There's one Jewish rabbi that started to teach about Mashiach.
That you know of.
What's his name? He's got a beautiful name.
Which one?
The one with the long beard.
A few like that.
No, he's got a very long beard. It's not very old. Anava or I don't know.
Is it Anava? I think it's Anava.
Yeah, it's he teach a lot on the time of Mashiach, the age of Mashiach, and the coming of Mashiach.
That's one we've watched a few.
Yeah.
It's a bit long-winded.
No, he carries on and on.
Yeah,
And he makes
I know the one.
That's
The
it.
skinny one with the long beard.
Yeah. But at least they're starting to do that, and also the rabbi from the Temple Institute, they're also aware of
Oh, yeah.
of that.
Listen to him.
Chaim, Rabbi Chaim something. But within Messianic circles, I know my mentor that I listen a lot to, I listened to one of his teachings the other day. He refused to teach on Revelation. Refused. He said, because we can't say.
We can't.
You can't say what's going to happen. to refuse to spend time there. There's a lot of people in his congregation got a lot of questions. And he said, just, no, I'm not going to answer that. But in saying that, he probably saw a lot of and he actually explained why. He said that a lot of people jump and say, oh, it's the third seal now. No, this horse is running, all that. And it's all a lot of scare tactics and things, and he doesn't want to have anything to do that. But in that, if you don't do it in a balanced way, you will either steer towards left or the right. Either you reject it, or you'll go too far to the other side and say, no, and the rapture is next week, kind of thing. And you don't want to do either. But from my point of view, what I think is important, we need to know the signs of the times, so we can know what is coming, so we will not fear, and know what the Torah says about us within the framework of the Exodus. That's our pattern. That's the pattern we're going to follow. And we interpret Revelation and all the prophets in the pattern of leaving Egypt, and also into the pattern of what we read here, crossing the Jordan, at the border of the Jordan. And if you take that as the framework, you get the balanced truth, because we've got a prophetic content that we pull parts from Revelation in, parts from Daniel in, we put it within the framework of the pattern of the Torah that we're studying every year, and that will keep us from going astray. So that's the answer or the solution to that problem.
Well, I mean, there's a blessing in studying the Revelation. Why would you not teach it?
People are afraid. I know personal friends of ours refuse to read it because they've been doom and gloom as young people, and they don't want anything because they don't want to fear. But they don't get the good news story behind it that we try to extract from the Torah, because it's all about Yahweh's grace, His saving grace, His provision, all the things He's done to look after Israel. That's what we need to learn in order to prepare.
Your spiritual growth comes from dealing with fear, with recognizing it for what it is.
Yeah, look at it.
And
it's not that big a deal, because Yahweh's bigger than your deal.
You need that really firm foundation in the Tanakh with the prophets and the other two. We've been in the past. We didn't have a good foundation.
In this whole thing too, we get back to the blessings and the cursings. Yahweh specifically says if you adhere to these principles, there's a blessing, and it goes on and on and on, tells you exactly what the blessings are. But if you don't, these are the things, and then the list really gets nice and long. So it's all back to Torah. If you don't keep Torah, no blessing.
And there's a pre-warning. You're not ignorant.
That's right,
It's a choice.
Either you don't believe that He exists, either you believe He exists and you don't want to follow Him, or you know He exists, you say you follow Him, but you're rebelling against Him, or you're just ignorant. One of those four. Right, so this one I just want to emphasize the same theme. Isaiah 4 verse 5 to 6 says, so you will stumble by day, and the prophet also will stumble with you by night. And I will destroy your mother. My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge, because you have rejected knowledge. I also will reject you from being my priest. Since you have forgotten the law, which is the Torah of your Elohim, I also will forget your children. So he's using the knowledge, mother and children. He also used the language of priest and kingdom of priests. We said it's also the mothers. It's also the ones who's got the wheat belly, who are pregnant, who will look after the new ones who's going to be born. So those who come through this time of trouble, which is the big birth, the great birth, some of them will teach the new ones the Torah, but there will be others who will teach them whatever they will teach them that's not the Torah. And this is the message to them. If you don't teach people the Torah, you will go astray because of a lack of knowledge. And your children will perish as well. So the only safety and safeguard you have during that time is Yahweh's Torah. And that's another comforting message to those who embrace the Torah, and a message to those who don't want to, as a bit of a pre-warning. Deuteronomy 4 verse 1 to 2. Israel, listen to the laws, the rules I'm about to teach you. Obey them so that you will live and be able to enter and take possession of the land that Yahweh Elohim of your ancestors is giving you. Never add anything to what I command you or take anything away from it. Then you will be able to obey the commands of Yahweh your Elohim that I give you. I've got a picture there of a masterpiece of a beautiful painting that someone took away from. Now, if you think about Yahweh's Torah as a masterpiece, and you take your knife, I don't like this, you scratch off the paint there. I want to add, you take your spray can, you paint some whatever on it. You defile the whole thing. And the thing is, it will lose its value. And the value is the value to you, or the value to your congregation if you're a spiritual leader. If you defile Yahweh's Torah, you have a beautiful, very expensive art piece that you destroyed, and it's got no value for anyone anymore. And that value is actually spiritual value. You're actually destroying something that can help you. And that's foolishness. So that's the message that Yahweh wants to give us here. Now, what he says in Deuteronomy, don't add, don't take away. Since Deuteronomy is the last book, Revelation is the last book of the big book, that got the same message. And it says the following in Revelation 20:18-19. I testify to everyone who hears the words of this prophecy of this book. If anyone adds to them, Yahweh will add to them the plagues that are written in this book. And if anyone takes away from them of the words of this book of this prophecy, God will take away his part from the tree of life and from the holy city, which are written in this book. So they are the ones who are going to be outside the city. They will not enter into the city. And that's the promise given here to those who take away. So if you abolish the Torah, you can read for yourself where you're going to end up. It's even in the New Testament. If you add to the Torah, our Jewish brothers wrote the whole Talmud that built fences around Yahweh's commandments, so you won't come near his commandments, because you have to break all the other commandments around that. And the Christian brothers, they do the same. They wrote 10 steps to prosperity, 20 steps to this, having your best life now, and all those things. People don't read the scriptures anymore. And they preach the Torah's done away with, and they don't even read the prophets. So, there's not much left of their painting, is there? They've got maybe just a frame with a few rags in the corner left. They can't even see what the picture is about. They built something upon a few pixels on the corner there. So just a bit of a recap, and to emphasize, in relation to the 10 commandments, which our SDA brothers do a very good job of, at least they stand on the 10 commandments, which I think is very, very important and very commendable. And they've been standing on this for years. And then the Messianics came on board, and they also now stand on the commandments, but they also embrace everything, including the majority of the scriptures. So you know, to decide which side of the river you want to end up in. This one I call Yahweh speaking words of fire. It's in relation to the covenant that Yahweh spoke, but the language he's using, he says in Deuteronomy 5 verse 2, Yahweh your Elohim made a covenant with us in Horeb, which is Mount Cheref. Yahweh made not this covenant with our fathers, but with us, even us who are all of us here active, alive this day. Yahweh talked with you face to face in the mount out of the midst of the fire. So he's basically speaking to them as if that event is happening there, right there in the midst, and he's talking to you right now, face to face. But they weren't born yet.
Mm.
So this implies that the covenant is eternal. It's outside of time.
Mm.
And we can have that face-to-face experience with Yahweh, but specifically on the Moedim that's designed for this event to be, where Yahweh spoke and he said, to you face-to-face in the mount out of the midst of the fire. So it's as if his words were words of fire.
Mm.
We saw that later on in the book of Acts. Tongues of fire, when your tongue is fire, that's the tongue form the words. It is as if the words are fire, words of fire. And the message of those words were the 10 words of the 10 commandments. And that's why I believe that the message that's spoken by speaking in tongues of different languages were the 10 commandments in different languages spoken by the people, which is a miracle that drew the attention of unbelievers, because they heard the same thing spoken in all those languages. And some of them might have privilege of understanding 2 languages, and then they heard the same message from 2 different dialects of languages. And that made 3,000 come to faith that day. I believe in speaking in tongues, but without interpretation, it's just noise. If it doesn't mean anything to anyone, it doesn't mean anything.
Mm.
So it's there for a purpose in the context of Shavuot, in context of the words of fire. And what I said earlier, the Tower of Babel assembled people around a language. Yahweh's language with a specific message, using different languages in this case, is the language of the 10 commandments that's uniting Yahweh's people back again, which is part of the creation process. He started with creating, separation, then he's unifying, and unification happens in the spiritual, separation happens in the physical. So we're in the process of being unified again. So we're going to be elevated to the spiritual. So we need to become one, echad. And you can only become one in echad through the 10 commandments. That's our standing place. That's our common ground. Even if you don't agree with a little bit of this, a little bit of that, doesn't matter. If you stand on the 10 commandments, that's good enough to have fellowship with your STA brother, whoever. So we shouldn't split hairs and fight with other little things like cutting the edge of the beard, wearing a head covering. That's not relevant. That's personal. If you want to do it, go for it. Don't tell people it's sin if you don't do it. Then it's wrong if it's not written in the Torah. Blessings versus miracles. Deuteronomy 6 verse 10 to 11. So it shall be when Yahweh your Elohim brings you into the land of which he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to give you a large and beautiful cities which you did not build, houses full of all good things which you did not fill, hewed out wells which you did not dig, vineyards and olive trees which you did not plant, when you have eaten and are full. So this is the promise Yahweh is giving them, but they come from the background of traveling through the wilderness. There's a pillar of cloud and there's a pillar of fire. There's manna every day, supernatural food. Their shoes don't wear out. There's water coming from a rock. Everything is provided in the context of a miracle. Now they're going to cross the Jordan and they're going to enter the land of blessings. So there's a difference between blessings and miracles. What does Yeshua say about blessings? Miracles or signs? An evil and adulterous generation seek after a sign, and a sign will not be given except the sign of Jonah, and he left them and he went away. And John 4:48 said, Yeshua said to them, unless you people see signs and wonders, you simply will not believe. And that's the generation that we are in. Seeing is believing, and if I don't see God, I don't believe in him. So what do people want to do today when there's a prophet in town? Oh, this guy, miracles, people stand up and walk and all those things. And then all the Christians go for their little entertainment hype. It's actually designed for unbelievers to draw unbelievers in so that they can believe, not for the entertainment of believers and to throw the prophet with money. because of how great he is. And then they worship the prophet. Oh, he's so great and he's wonderful. And we listen to him. And then whenever he share a doctrine or whatever, they'll just grab it and don't test it because he showed me signs. He must be a man of God. So we should not be fooled, because in the end of time, the Antichrist will be revealed and he'll call fire from heaven. He will do greater signs than all the false prophets done up to now. And he will draw a crowd larger than some of these prophets do today. And they will all worship him because of his signs. That's why he's going to be called the Christ.
You can't call yourself a prophet if you don't follow Torah.
Exactly. A prophet will always repeat the words of Yahweh, bringing you back to Torah.
Prophets didn't want to be prophets either, because they knew what that meant for them.
I know.
They were outcasts.
If they make one false prophecy, they're dead.
And that.
It's not a nice job.
And if they make enough actual prophecies, they end up dead.
End up dead because the kings
How
don't
many
like.
of them lived in mansions and flew private jets?
Of course. Not one.
Not one.
End up in jail. Dead.
A slimy pit.
Yeah.
That's true prophet.
So this is a message to the body of Messiah, not to chase after prophets, because you are an evil and adulterous generation seeking after signs and wonders. Those who believe without seeing and believe because of the word of Yahweh, blessed are they.
When you think about it, the true miracles, well, the miracle of our generation is the recreation of the state of Israel.
Yes.
You think how amazing is the restoration of the language of Hebrew. Amazing. Beyond comprehension, really.
6-day war.
Six-day war. Amazing. All this, we're surrounded by this in our generation. But even the people in Israel, you think, he told you what's going to happen. It happened. He told you he was going to bring you back. It happened.
He showed you
You're there in the
miracles,
land.
and yet they still don't believe.
Still don't believe. In fact, it's probably one of the most secular countries in the world in many ways. Abortions and sin abounds in that place. You think, what does he need to do?
A greater sign and wonder.
Yeah.
And they will all happen during the time of judgment, the Great Tribulation. That's when Yahweh will take out his best signs and wonders ever. And then lots of people will believe because of those signs and wonders. That's why the intensity of the Great Tribulation is so high, because of the adulterous generation who want to see. And when they see these things, they will say, oh, there's really a God, because no one can do this. And they will fear and tremble and grab you by your titi. Say, teach me about this God of yours.
Examples of that are really common. Unless I see the prince in his hand, put my hand in his side, I won't believe.
Yeah.
Blessed are they that have believed and not seen. So it's not a physical thing. It's a deep spiritual thing. You've got to believe in what you have.
The other thing about the miracle is, miracles are there for a time of crisis. Blessing is something you get because of obedience. Deuteronomy 28. I'd rather walk in blessings. I don't want to walk in miracles, because I know there's a few crises that need to be solved. But there will be a time where we will rely on miracles if we enter that time. But we'll be all right then.
That's
Understanding.
why the miracles stopped when they got into the land.
Yeah.
Because the blessings took over.
All right. The next I want to touch on is, I think I mentioned last time, that Yeshua quoted a lot from the book of Deuteronomy. And 2 of those quotes comes from this Torah portion, and 1 of those quotes from next Torah portion. I'm going to do all 3 of them in this city. So it has to do with Yeshua being tempted in the wilderness. Isn't that interesting? Our theme is in the wilderness, Moses pleading. Israel spent 40 days in the wilderness. Yeshua spent 40 days in the wilderness, and he's hungry. and now is being tempted within that environment. So Isaiah 14, verse 16 to 17, what I want to touch on is, why is there a wilderness? Because Israel went through a wilderness, Yeshua went through a wilderness, but when Yahweh created, he created a paradise. So something happened for the paradise to change into a wilderness. Now the answer is in Isaiah 14, verse 16 to 17. It says, those who see you will gaze at you, they will ponder over you, saying, is this the man who made the earth tremble, who shook the kingdoms, who made the world like a wilderness and overthrew its cities, who did not allow its prisoners to go home? So this is a word from Isaiah describing Satan, or Lucifer, or the devil, or the Nachash. People looking, really? Is this the man who did all of that? Because he's not that great. His power is within his tongue and his ability to enchant and to beguile people into listening to him and following him. Now, if I'm a liar and I'm lazy, I will tell a lie to someone to do the things that I need to be done, and I use their energy and their effort. That's the way Satan operates. Because he doesn't have the power, he uses the power of people through lies, persuading them in order to do his filthy work for you. And that's where his power lies. Imagine if everyone on this world will stop believing his lies. Imagine how wonderful this place will be. If they just stop for one day, not obeying his lies, you will have no power for that day. So this wilderness was created by Satan through his initial lie, and then Yahweh cursed his creation, and that created the wilderness. So he even used Yahweh's creation, which is Adam and Eve, to lie to them. They disobeyed, and he used Yahweh's power to change Yahweh's paradise into a wilderness. He even used Yahweh to destroy his own creation in a sense. But Yeshua, resisting the serpent or the devil in the wilderness, now recreates the paradise, or convert the wilderness back into paradise. So that's the thing I want to emphasize here. If you just think about, I'll resist the devil, it's like having a shield. You give me a blow, I just dodge the blow, block it with my shield, and then, all right, I've done that. Great. It's not about dodging bullets or the sword or whatever that's coming from the enemy. Every time you resist the enemy, you have the power of recreating a little bit of paradise within that environment. And that's what I've got that picture there. You bring light into darkness in that little spot that you are, where you are tempted in. And there's a little bit of green grass growing where you stand. Whenever you walk and you face something else, you create another green patch when you resist. Before you know it, you've got a nice big lawn and everything in your household, everything green and lush and beautiful. You simulate the paradise within this fallen, cursed world. And you're starting to push the curse outside of your sphere of influence. And Yeshua gave us the hint and also the power by using his word to speak life and light whenever there's a lie coming your way or temptation coming your way. So resisting is recreating paradise. Every time you succeed, you've taken one step forward and you take a bit back for the kingdom of Yahweh. So it's not only about, oh, I'm going to be saved and I'm trying to be saved and all that. That's why I avoid evil. No, it's about actively taking back the wilderness and converting it back into paradise. Because if you and your household succeed in that, there's one family. If you can influence another family, then there's more. And that then multiplies. And before you know it, the whole paradise is restored. So that's the power in resisting Satan. Taking back paradise. Yeshua tempted in the wilderness. The first one is in Matthew 4, verse 1 to 4. Yeshua was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. After fasting 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. The tempter came to him and said, "If you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread." And Yeshua answered, "It is written, man shall not live on bread alone, but from every word that comes from the mouth of Yahweh." And what Yeshua quoted is from next week's Torah portion, which is Deuteronomy 8, verse 7 to 9, that says, for Yahweh your Elohim is bringing you into a good land of brooks and water, fountains and springs, and flow out of valleys and hills, and the land of wheat and barley, vines and fig trees and pomegranates, and the land of olive oil and honey, a land in which you will eat bread without scarcity, in which you will lack nothing, land whose stones are iron, out of whose hills you can dig copper. So we see the connection with bread and stones there. That was used to tempt. Because when you look at the current scene where Yeshua is in, he's in a fallen state after the curse came. So what's described in Deuteronomy is the paradise scene that will happen after he resists the devil. And that's also the promise that's associated with the covenant. So the restoration is captured within Deuteronomy, what the outcome is of resisting the devil in relation to food, specifically bread, or meeting your daily needs to keep you alive. And if you read all about that, it talks about springs that will flow, wheat and barley, fig trees, pomegranates, olive oil and honey. It's not about bread. It's about having everything you need to sustain you will be the paradise that will be restored if you resist the temptation within your current wilderness. Matthew said, seek first the kingdom of God, and then everything else will be given to you anyway. So seek first the kingdom is about resisting the devil, resisting Satan in your life, resisting the fleshly desire in your life, and the curse will go. And eventually, the paradise will be restored. And in the future, you will have all those blessings that's associated with the promised land as well. Next one is Matthew 4, verse 5 to 7. Then the devil took him up to a holy city and set him on the pinnacle of the temple and said to him, if you're the Son of God, throw yourself down. For it's written, he shall give you angels charge over you, and in their hands they will bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone. Yeshua said to him, it is written, you shall not tempt Yahweh your Elohim. Now Satan quoted Psalm 91 verse 11, but he left out verse 12, where it said that he will trample on the head of the serpent. So he didn't quote that one because it's not appropriate. Now, where this prophecy comes from, it's an ancient prophecy that's in Jewish writings. They say that when Messiah comes, when Mashiach comes, he will come down from the Mount of Olives and go to the pinnacle of the temple from where he will descend, probably in slow motion, in view of the people, revealing himself as the Mashiach. And that's what Satan used to tempt Yeshua with, to say, or to gain what he will, gauge what he will answer. And then Yeshua said, it is written, you shall not tempt Yahweh your Elohim. Now it's interesting, when he said that, he actually revealed who he was in his answer. He said, I am Yahweh your Elohim. You will not tempt Yahweh your Elohim. Because he was tempting Yeshua, Yeshua actually revealed who he was. And the prophecy was about revealing who you were as the Mashiach. So there's a deeper revelation that the Mashiach is Yahweh Elohim. That's a deeper revelation. So he's actually revealing more by his answer than what you actually expect. Otherwise, he would have just said, I'm the Mashiach. What he quoted was in Deuteronomy 6, verse 16 to 19. You shall not tempt Yahweh your Elohim, as you tempted him in Massah, You shall diligently keep the commandments of Yahweh your Elohim, his testimonies, his statutes, and that he commanded you. And you shall do what is right and good in the sight of Yahweh, that it may be well with you, that you may go and possess a good land which Yahweh swore to your fathers, to cast out your enemies from before you, as Yahweh has spoken. Yet again, we see the restoration of paradise, which is the promised land. Just like the previous one, restoration of paradise. If you resist Satan, paradise will be restored, and it's all in Deuteronomy. Last one, Matthew 4, verse 8 to 10. And the devil took him up to an exceedingly high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory, and said to him, all these things I will give you if you fall down and worship me. Then Yeshua said to him, away with you, Satan, for it's written, you shall worship Yahweh your Elohim, and you only you shall serve. This is a quote from Deuteronomy 6, verse 10 to 13, where it says, so it shall be when Yahweh your Elohim brings you to the land which he swore to your fathers, and Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, give you large and beautiful cities that you did not build, houses of all good things which you did not fill, hewn wells which you did not dig, vineyards and olive trees which you did not plant. When you have eaten and are full, then beware lest you forget Yahweh who brought you out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage. You shall fear Yahweh your Elohim and serve him, and shall take oaths in his name. So that yet again is in the context of the paradise being restored, the promised land being revealed, and he's also revealed himself as Yahweh Elohim in that passage quoting Deuteronomy. So can you imagine if the religious crowd heard his answers, because they knew the Torah, and they would arc up when he quote that, because he's implying that he's Yahweh Elohim in every answer that he gave, which is interesting.
It's interesting that it was 3 times that he resisted, and then after the 3rd time, Satan did flee.
Yeah.
I always find that interesting, and I don't know why or what the connection is, but it always reminds me, what comes into my mind is Ruth, when she's leaving and resisting and wanting to follow Naomi, and then 3 times go back, but she was 3 times she resisted that, and then after that she was allowed to follow. I don't know.
Yeah.
There seemed to be something about that.
Yeah, and who renounced Yeshua 3 times? Peter.
Yeah.
3 times again.
Yeah.
And 3 is the number of covenant.
No, but if you read this carefully, it seems as though Satan wasn't really sure who Yeshua was.
Yeah, he was
Because he kept
probing.
If.
You want to make sure.
Yeah. And the other thing too, it's amazing when Yeshua walked the earth, he kept telling the people, don't tell the people now that I am the Messiah. You know, when you start relating those things, it was only at the end of his ministry that when they asked him, who are you? He said, I am the Christ.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So not even Satan knew that he had to sort of like
confirm it. Yeah. He had a hunch.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting about this passage here, the verses preceding this passage is what you found inside every mezuzah. And the mezuzah is a symbol of being a bondservant. And the worshipping down in order to get something of this kingdom. Yahweh's bondservants will not sell their souls to get worldly kingdom goods or things. So that's a message to us as well, to emphasize, you are a bondservant, you shall not fall down and worship someone who's tempting you or threatening your life. We need to be always mindful that we are bond servants, and we should adhere to Yahweh because he's greater than the enemy, and he will go away eventually. Another thing that's interesting here is that things of this world is normally related to needs, because most adults are in survival mode, and everything we do is to survive. Everything we think about, whatever, is for provision, because that's our highest priority sometimes, or most of the time, in general. And from Yahweh's perspective, he wants us to seek his face and not his hand. So people in the world, specifically in the body of Messiah, who adhere to the prosperity teaching, it is as if they worship things, or they worship themselves that need to be elevated as a god of the gods that you serve, which are the things. And it's all about me, myself, and I, and my stuff.
Well, they worship God to get things.
No, they worship themselves, and they want things because they are the king on their throne. And they've got their little kingdom. So in the context of this, they already crave the kingdom of this world, and they're willing to seek things. Now, from a religious perspective, they will give it all sorts of a religious flavor and use God's language and whatever, and his promises, and bend things out of shape. But only seeking the hand, that's Esau. Only want the fleshly things. And that is similar to what Satanists say within their main 10 commandments is, do your own will. Do what you want. Listen to your heart and seek after your own desires. And if you are fleshly orientated, you indirectly bowing down to Satan, and you will get the things of the kingdom. And that's what we need to avoid. Seek first the kingdom of Yahweh, seek his face, and he will give you anything anyway. Don't seek it. Don't even spend time asking about it. Thank him for who he is, and that you're in covenant with him, and he will always look after you.
One of the things that Martin Iles identified with those who deconverted from Christianity was that they started from a place of doubt, and then it sort of grew from there. And one of the things that they identified is they couldn't accept God's morality as expressed in the Word of God, and that one of them specifically said that he returned to human morality to make the decision. I'm thinking, human morality,
Lowering your standard.
Human morality.
What's that?
What's that?
That's
Where's
fleshliness.
Where's morality expressed? You're going to Cuba for human morality, Venezuela, China, human morality. Wherever God isn't, there's no morality.
Yeah,
There's
which is
corruption,
human morality.
Which is immorality.
Immorality is human morality.
Yeah,
it's fleshly desires. That's
I'm thinking, that's a basic. Sorry, it's a basic. Wherever God's been rejected, there's immorality and corruption. Not that there isn't immorality and corruption, anyway, but I know where I'd choose to live, a country that has Christian foundations or, anti-God foundations. Which one you want to live in, It's
Yeah, so the last thing is not to treat Yeshua or Jesus or Yahweh as a genie in a bottle or in a lamp. Where you just use the fact that you're a child of the king. I now demand all the riches of the kingdom because I'm rich. There's one of the pastors that we listened to years back when I was still entrapped in this doctrine. And he wrote the book Rich. He called it Rich. And he said he freaked out a lot of religious people because it's a new way of Yahweh, of God. And he basically went on the prosperity thing, and he had his doctrines and bent out of shape verses to confirm that. And me as a young Christian, I just followed that. I
Mm.
thought it was good.
Mm.
And I was sucked into that. And I was so disappointed because it doesn't work. Luckily,
That's right.
it's a lot of rubbish.
Mm.
So,
One of their favorite scriptures is, "My God shall supply all your need
according to riches
according
and
to
glory.
your riches," but they leave out glory.
Yeah.
Really, it's riches and glory. It's not riches.
That's spiritual,
Mm.
not physical.
It's a spiritual. Yeah.
All right, so that's the last one. Any comments?
Mm.
Fantastic. Mm.
Once again, very relevant to our current
Yes.
I love the,
situation. Mm.
the picture of the, is this the man and the wilderness transforming the
Yeah.
wilderness? That's a powerful,
Yeah.
powerful insight. When you resist,
And it gives you the idea that you're in an army and you take back land, you take back ground. Every time you resist, you take back, you take back. And it's a stand you take under the authority of the commander who's standing upon the Torah.
And it operates in all dimensions.
Yeah.
You bring the truth to someone in the physical, that's light, but you bring the presence of God also at the same time. You bring the presence of God through the word that you speak into the spirit realm above you, and you are connecting with heaven at the same time. You bring your heaven to earth in that simple act of resisting, speaking the truth.
And so we rebel against all the powers and principalities and what they bring. We take a stance for Yahweh, His righteousness and His truth.
You know, Philip, I constantly go back to the garden when they were tempted with the fruit of knowledge of good and evil. Good, they knew. There's nothing wrong with good. But they chose to take something, a knowledge of evil. And when they did that, that poisoned the whole DNA system, that caused the whole of humanity, just the whole of creation, groaneth because of the sin of man. And that rebellion literally decimated the whole of creation when you come to think of it. No wonder the judgment was so hard at that time.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it makes me think that recreating the wilderness and also the light. I had an experience of having I think it was about a week's tour in the Sinai desert years ago. I wasn't a believer then, but I've never seen in the wilderness where there's nothing. The sky at night is so black. With such incredible darkness, like you can feel it, and it fits that in the natural picture. That in the wilderness, that darkness, and then the word that you speak is bringing light.
It's a burst of light.
Yeah.
You speak out against darkness, and the more you speak that, the more the light will surround you. Yeah. All right.
It's interesting. We tend to think about God speaking to them out of the fire from the mountain, but in reality, God was speaking to them out of the fire through the whole of their journey in the wilderness.
Yeah. The furnace,
pillar of fire by night.
Yeah.
You could see the flames by night, but in the day, the fire was still in the midst, and that was the voice guiding them through the whole of their journey. They needed Moses to translate,
to mediate,
but God was there all the way.
Yeah. All right. So he's going to close for us in prayer.
Father, we are so grateful that we can sit here under these words that were spoken by Moses at the time, teaching us to understand your precepts and understanding of who you were. The knowledge that we received from these teachings, we understand, is for our benefit, for our lives, to take us through to another time where we will spend with you, walking in the light as you are in the light, back to the garden. We pray that as we journey through this life of ours, Lord, that we never turn back and look behind us, but that we look forward. You told us in your word, look up, your redemption is coming soon. And that's our whole ambition in life, is to look up and to see your face, not see the things around us, but to look to you, the author and the finisher of all good things, because you are our Yahweh. We bless you, we praise you, we glorify that name which is above every name, that every knee will bow and every tongue confess that you are Lord of lords and King of kings. We give you glory, praise, honor, and thanks. In Yeshua's name we pray this. Thank you.
Amen.